Hey guys, so Kardak here, and today I'm here with another Battle Spirits deck profile. Today we'll be doing a deck profile on the Gundam Seed from the newest collaboration booster. And yeah, let's get right into the deck. It's a very fun deck to play, but it is a little bit weak against decks that have prevention for bouncing. But yeah, let's get right into the deck. So first up, we are running 3 of the High Mat Freedoms. This is the Freedom from the booster set, and it does have a different name than the Freedom in the Star deck, so you can run both of them at the same time. And mainly you're using him for the change effect. It's a 6 cost and with 4 reduction, and basically what you do, you just return 40 cost worth of spirits on your opponent's field, and then you can switch it with a 5/7/9 cost white spirit in refreshed state. So you get another attack. And on top of that, you also get a second effect, which is, or he has 3 effects. The other one is PS Armor 7, so he's unaffected by all cards cost 7 or lower. And he has another flash effect that works when he's level 2 and 3, which allows him to refresh as well as get an additional white symbol. So he'll be attacking for 2, refresh, attack for 2 again, and if you use change and then bounce, you already got another attack in. So he'll be you can finish game with this guy. He's quite good. Next, we are running 3 of the Starotech Freedoms. So this is a Advent monster or Advent spirit, where you can just Advent on a 5 cost or more white spirit. And when he on his summon or Advent, you can negate all of your opponent's spirit's text, and you can return 2 of their spirits back to the deck bottom deck. And then he also has PS Armor 7, and his second attack is, or his third skill is at the end of the battle that this card's battle, you can send one of your opponent's life cores to the trash. So you can change this on top of that, and if you're already battling, you can go wombo combo and stuff. But the High Mat Freedom can change with pretty much everything in this deck. Not the 4 cost strikes, but everything besides that. So next we are running 3 of the Deactive Strikes. This is one of the key searchers in this deck. So when it's summoned, you can search look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and then you can add all the Strike Gundams, all cards with Strike Gundams in the name to your hand, and then put the rest at the bottom. So since this deck is running a lot of strikes, you'll be adding a lot of cards in your hand. If you are running a similar build to mine. And then the second skill is also when this spirit uses the open effect to look at the top card, you can also add a MS white spirit to your hand. So if you didn't flip a strike and you flip this freedom and he's level 2, you can grab that to your hand too. So definitely very key in this deck. So a lot of times you're going to be attacking with him, and then you're going to be striker pack changing, so you can put this back in your hand, and then you can use it again next turn to keep searching your deck. It's just really good. This card's just really good. Next, we're running 4 of the regular Strike Gundams. So mainly we want him, so he can destroy bursts, and he can also add to your core acceleration. So when he attacks, you can add 1 white core. He also has PS Armor 4, and his level 2 skill is this card gets +1 cost, so it will become a 5 cost when he's at 2 cores. So you can Advent the Freedom on him, and you can use the change effect with this. So pretty good. Mainly I'm using it for the core acceleration though, but everything else is a cherry on top. Next, we're running this Strike Gundam. This is the Rebirth Strike Gundam. So on the summon, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck, and then you can add a Alliance, Orb, or Pilot card to your hand. And the rest goes to the bottom of the deck. And also he also has PS Armor 4 at level 2, and it's a Rebirth Spirit. So at level 2 you can use his Rebirth skill, which is to flip this card over by paying 1 cost if your opponent's spirit attacks or blocks. So you cannot proc it on his own. Your opponent has to do something in order for you to proc it. And you do have to pay a cost, so it's not as good as the double O ones in my opinion, but it's still pretty decent. This card gets 1 core when you attack or when it's Rebirth, and then this card also gets +5 as an extra battle power. So it's not bad. This is how the Rebirth Spirit works. You just flip the card over, and then there you go. What I do is I have like extra copies of them in my deck box, so I can just plop it on there instead of taking the card out of the sleeve. So we'll put that there. Running 3 of those. Mainly this card's used for the search. The Rebirth is just the cherry on top. Next, we are running 3 of the Ale Strike. This is the Ale Strike Rebirth. So he has the Striker Pack change, and he has another skill, which is a Rebirth skill. So he works a little bit differently than that Strike Gundam. This one, during either player's attack step, during the flash timing, you can pay 1 cost to flip this, and this card is pretty good. When it's Rebirth, you can choose 1 10,000 power lower BP Spirit and put it at the bottom of your opponent's deck. And if this card is swapped away with Striker Back Change, you can activate the Rebirth skill again. So unfortunately, this particular build is not running that many Striker Pack cards. We are running this Ale Strike, and we're also running the Launcher Strike from the trial deck, but we're not running the Sword Strike as much as I wanted to run it, but we'll get into that later. So we're running 3 of the Rebirth Sword Strikes. So it has a flash timing effect. You can what do you call it? Tap, rest. You can exhaust is the term in this game. You can exhaust one of your motherships, Nexuses, to summon this card with no cost, and then you can discard a card. You have to discard a card in your hand to return one of your opponent's spirits to their hand, and then you can draw 1. So very good. He's very good for his flash timing. Being able to return one of your opponent's spirits is pretty good, especially if they're playing something really strong that can have 2 symbols. And there's a lot of cards that stop you from ending the battle step now. So this will help you with bouncing your opponent's monsters or spirits in their hands, so you can live an extra turn, as well as having an extra blocker or attacker on the field. And he's another Rebirth Spirit, so he rebirths into the Ale Strike Gundam. And when this card, when your opponent attacks, you can choose a Gundam card, White Spirit, to refresh it. So you can always block. And then during either player's attack step, at the beginning of either player's attack step, you can choose one of your opponent's spirits and make it 4 cost. What that does is it makes it so that your PS armor is active, because most of the PS armors in this deck will be 4 cost or lower. So if they are 4 cost, they won't be able to touch you with their effects. So it's pretty good. Mainly playing it for the flash timing to return your opponent's spirits, but I think the Rebirth is also pretty good. So next we are running 2 of the Launcher Strike from the trial deck. So he has the Striker Pack change skill, and the second skill is during either opponent's, it's a flash skill, so it's during either opponent's attack step, you can once per turn pay 1 cost to return 2 10,000 BP or lower spirits and return to your opponent's hand. So we're running this over the Sword Strike because I think returning spirits is a little bit better than destroying Nexus, because not every deck will play at Nexus, but I'm pretty sure every deck will play spirits. So it's there for that. So your opponent, if your opponent has a rush deck, they can't really rush you with small powered spirits. And yeah, I really do want to run the Sword Strike though. So maybe in a different later build, I might take one of these out for a copy or two of these, because he does ignore barrage, so that's nice in games against other Gundam decks. So next we are running 2 Perfect Strike. This is the, I think it's a V-Jump promo. What it does is when it's summoned, you can destroy 1 Nexus. Or you can put 1 Nexus to the bottom of the deck. So I like this one more than this one, is because you don't have to wait for flash timing and you don't have to pay a cost for you to remove the Nexus. So that's why we're running the Perfect Strike over the Sword Strike. Downside to him is he's 6 cost and you cannot striker pack change. But when he attacks, your opponent cannot block. So this is pretty good for that. And I think being a 6 cost with only 3 reduction is not that bad, because we have Kusanagi in this deck. So if you have an early game, he's just a 3 cost to play. Next we are running 2 Strike Rouge. So Strike Rouge is not searchable by the Deactive armor, because this only searches for Strike Gundams, and Strike Rouge does not have Gundam in its name. But you can search it using the second effect. So this is the only other card in this deck. There's only Spirit in this deck that is not a Strike Gundam, besides the Freedoms. So this is a really good card because it's a flash, and it attacks on your opponent's turn. You can pay 2 costs to summon this, and then the summon skill is, if you have another spirit on the field that's either Orb or Pilot, then you can end your opponent's with Spirit. Then you can end your opponent's attack step. So one of the problems with this deck is that the only Orb cards we're running are the Perfect Strike and the Freedoms. So these strikes are not Orb, they're Alliance. So this does not work with them, so you cannot end the battle step with that. But we do run Kira in this deck, and he is a pilot, so pilots do work with this too. But yeah, I think being able to pay 2 costs to summon a 5 cost spirit is pretty good in itself. It's not a 1 cost, which will be even better, but you can combo it with other cards like the Heimat Freedom. So you can pay 2 costs to summon this, and then if you don't have any orb, then you can't end the battle step, attack step, but you can change into this. So you can return your opponent's spirits, but that combo is gonna cost quite a lot of cores. So another card that I wanted to run before was the M1 Ashtrays. I was running 3 in my testing of this, but I feel like this doesn't really do anything late game, so I took them out and added more strikes instead, because they kind of saved my ass late game. But this is an orb, so if you choose to run this, you can combo it with the Strike Rouge. Previously, I was running 1 less of the Rebirth Strike, Sword Strike, and the regular Strike Gundam. So you can try that out if you like. Next, we're running 3 Kirita Yamatos. So he's the only Brave I'm running in this deck. I was running Kigali before, but Kigali doesn't really do anything late game. Mainly, I was running her for her extra cost reduction, since she was only at 2 costs. But Kusanagi does the job better, so I took Kigali out, and I rarely get to search Kira with her, so I just took her out. You can try her out if you like. This was the card I'm talking about. Yeah, she just has one symbol, so she does help with your cost reduction, but she gets 0 symbols when she's attacking, so that doesn't really help with reducing your opponent's cores. So I decided to take her out. Next, we are running 3 Archangels. This is the main Nexus that you want to use. Oh, well, because this and Kusanagi is both pretty important, but this helps you with your core acceleration, so it's pretty nice to have this early game, so you can charge your cores. Whenever so it has Barrage, which is this card cannot be affected by 5 cost or lower effects, so it's kind of like PS armor for ships. And the second skill is Flash. You can once per turn pay 2 cost and then exhaust. And then discard is cost kind of as a 5 cost, and then you can return one of your opponent's spirits to their hand. And the second skill is a level 2 skill, and it's whenever a MS whenever an MS spirit is attacking, you can charge a core from the void. So if you have a lot of spirits on the field, you can keep charging your cores. So it's very, very good for core acceleration. And next, we're also running 3 Kusanagi, which helps you with stopping your opponent from drawing early game with low cost draw cards, as well as it helps you fulfill all of the conditions, cost reductions for your strikes and your orb spirits. So the level 2, that's what the level 2 of this skill does. All your strike Gundam and orb spirits are, this one counts as 3 reduction. So pretty much it gets rid of all of the cost reduction, because everything here is pretty much at 3 or less. So it'll pretty much meet all of the reductions. This is the exception, but you're not really going to summon this with his 8 cost anyway, unless you get your hand put into the open zone. Then you're kind of boned. Then you have to use this from your open zone, since you can't use change. Last but not least, we're running 2 Haros. So Haro is another Nexus. You can't use this with the Sword Strike though, because it's not a mothership. But this does help you search your deck. So when it's deployed, you can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and add a MS, MA, mothership, or a pilot to your hand. So just for other stuff too, but you mainly want to, in this deck, want to search for your mobile suits or pilots. And the second skill is level 2 skill, is whenever your opponent uses a skill to add cards to their hand, your opponent has to discard a card, and then you can bounce this back to your hand, so you can reuse it. So it kind of stops your opponent from drawing, mainly against double O decks. And it's same for Kusanagi. Kusanagi also works on your opponent's turn. If they activate a 3 cost or lower effect to add cards to their hand, then for every card they add, they have to discard. So if they are using the double O draw engine, like let's see, where is it? Like this, for example, it lets you draw 2 and discard 1. They get to draw 2 and have to discard 3. So pretty strong. They have to discard 3 because this one requires them to discard, just for clarification. And last but not least, we're running 2 crystal walls, or diamond walls. This card is kind of a staple now. It stops your opponent from killing you in 1 turn. Yeah, not much else to say about that. Well, they can only reduce your core by 1 on the turn that you use this, and you can also return one of your opponent's spirits to their hand. But this card has saved my life so many times, and also kind of cock-blocked me from killing my opponent. So definitely very, very key. but this card doesn't really help you if you are at 1 life, so be careful with that. But yeah, in all my other double decks, I'm running this also, but it works best in this deck because this deck is playing white, so you can essentially pay this cost with only 2 cores. So overall, that's pretty much the deck. It's very, very fun to play, and you kind of really need this to get your combo started, to get your hand advantage. But everything else is also not that bad. These 2 cards, these 2 strikes will mainly be your starting spirit to play. So yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you, which deck you want to see next. I also have the Celestial Being deck ready. Unicorn deck is also ready. Sleeves deck is also ready, and my Zaf deck is also ready. So let me know which one you want to see next, and I'll put it up as soon as possible. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. This is Kartaku, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!